Well, welcome everyone. Good evening or good late afternoon. Welcome to the Crane Center. I see a lot of familiar faces, but for those of you who don't know us, we are a nonprofit 501c3, and our main mission is to provide programs to help people reduce stress and become more resilient and plain and simply live better lives. So check out our website to see our offerings. All of our programs are rooted in mindfulness, positive psychology, and self-compassion. Today we have a very special guest, a friend, and Dr. Frank Cilio, who is a New Jersey licensed psychologist and the founder and executive director of the Center for Psychological Enhancement in Ridgewood, New Jersey. Dr. Cilio is a Fordham graduate, and he works with children, adolescents, adults, and families, and has been consistently thought of and referred to or recognized as one of the top children's doctors in his field. He's also an author of 12 children's books for being on mindfulness. And his books have been recipients of various awards. And he has a new book coming out in 2021, early 2021, a parenting book, so his first for adults. And it deals with parenting chronically ill children, or will be dealing with chronically ill children. He speaks across the country, and he's published in psychological journals, quoted in the media, so an expert in his field. Please go ahead and become more familiar with Dr. Cilio. If he resonates with you, follow him on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Visit his website, drfrankcilio.com. And so without much further ado, I'm going to introduce Dr. Cilio, but actually first I just want to say one thing. At the end of the workshop, we will be taking, or Dr. Cilio will be taking questions and answers. And the way I'm going to suggest that we do this is twofold. One, for those of you who would like to speak and ask your question, if you look down where it says participants and you click on that, you will see that there is an option to raise your hand. It's in the bottom right-hand corner. And so when invited to share or ask questions, just raise your hand digitally and Dr. Cilio will call upon you. And the other option is also to click on the chat box and type your question in there if you prefer just to type the question. So I hope you will all enjoy this workshop. And so Dr. Cilio, please welcome and thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Catherine. I really appreciate the invitation and glad to be part of the Crane Center for Mindful Living. I'm very grateful to be here. And this is a new thing for me, doing a Zoom type of presentation. I'm used to speaking, locally and across the country to many people. So this is the first time doing kind of a Zoom kind of meeting. So it's very exciting for me. And it's kind of where we are right now. So we're being mindful of this present moment. But as we're mindful of this present moment, maybe you just came from work, maybe you just fed your kids for dinner. So I thought maybe we would start with a meditation just to kind of keep us grounded, okay? So just listen to my words and find yourself in a relaxed, comfortable position, whether you're seated in a chair or on the floor if you wish, or on a cushion. Keep your back upright, but not too tight, hands resting wherever they are comfortable, tongue on the top of your roof of your mouth, wherever it's comfortable. And you can close your eyes if that's comfortable for you, or you could just close your eyes halfway, look in front of you if you don't want to close your eyes. Notice your body from the inside, noticing the shape of your body, the weight, and the touch. And let yourself relax and become curious about your body seated here. The sensations of your body, the touch, the connection with the floor or the chair. Relax any areas of tightness or tension. Just breathe, soften. and begin to tune into your breath in your body, feeling the natural flow of breath. You don't need to do anything to your breath, not long, not short, just natural. Notice where you feel your breath in your body. It might be in your abdomen, your chest, your throat, your nostrils. See if you can feel the sensations of breath, one breath at a time. When one breath ends, the next breath begins. Now, as you do this, you might notice that your mind may start to wander. You might start to think about other things. If this happens, this is not a problem. It's very natural. Just notice that your mind has wandered and then gently redirect your attention back to your breath. We'll stay with this for a few seconds, noticing our breath, from time to time getting lost in thought and returning back to the breath. See if you can really be kind to yourself in this process. Let yourself relax more deeply. Give yourself some appreciation for doing this, for being here today, whatever that means to you. Feeling a sense of ease and well-being for yourself in this day. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Okay. Hopefully everyone's feeling a little bit more in the room or wherever you are, kind of just sensing, sitting on your sits bones and feeling yourself present here. So again, I'm glad to be here and to talk about parenting tips on how to introduce mindfulness to kids and teens. Boy, do we need this now more than ever, right? And I think we should start off with what is mindfulness. Maybe some of us in this workshop are experienced mindfulness practitioners. Maybe some of us are here for the first time. But it's always important to kind of review what is mindfulness, because there's lots of misconceptions about what it is versus what it isn't. But Jon Kabat-Zinn, who developed mindfulness-based stress reduction program, which is offered through the Crane Center, it's where I got my training, is mindfulness means paying attention in a particular way on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. So in a particular way, on purpose, in the present moment, non-judgmentally. We're not really trained to be in the present. I'm finding that that people that live in the past, that's where remorse and regret and depression live. If you live too far in the future, that's where anxiety lives. So right now, all we have is the present. And as we think about where we are in this pandemic, we sometimes are finding ourselves living in the past. When are we ever going to get back to our favorite restaurant? When are the kids ever going to go back to school? Remember when they were at school? It was so great. Remember we were with our friends last summer? That will bring upon remorse, regret, and depression. Or if we stay into the future, when are we going to get back to normal? What is the new normal? Is there going to be enough toilet paper? That's going to create anxiety for us. So right now we need to live in this present moment. We need to socially distance and wear masks, etc. That is our present moment awareness. We find ourselves in automatic pilot oftentimes, right? That we're running from things, and maybe the pandemic has slowed us down, but certainly how many of us have driven to work or driven somewhere and realized, how did we get there? We are often become human doings instead of human beings. What are we running to or running from? Mindfulness is about noticing. And I gave you the definition of Jon Kabat-Zinn, but if we think about when we talk about this with children, it's just about noticing. So I want you to think about that. So mindfulness is not, what it isn't, is not a religion or a cult. It requires a great deal of patience, time, and practice. Kids don't always like to practice. If we have kids who are involved in sports or a musical instrument, we know that they don't like doing that all the time. And so mindfulness practices may be challenging for them, but also may be challenging for us. It's not about positive thinking. It's not a relaxation technique. We might feel relaxed as a result of mindfulness practices, and kids may feel that way, but it's not necessarily for relaxation. It's not going into a trance. You don't have to wear Birkenstocks or wear funny clothes. or om all the time. So I think that we all have the capacity to be mindful, especially children. Watch children play. They're always in the moment. They're not thinking about, what they're going to play next. They're in that moment. Although I see in my clinical practice that that's sometimes changing with kids, because they'll leave my office and then they're running to the next sporting activity, or everyone's running around. So, but children are more naturally mindful than adults can be. They're very much in the moment. Hopefully at the end of this workshop that you'll think about, what is my plan as a parent? And I think plan means, what it stands for me, the acronym is putting life into action now. That's what plan means. So what's your plan? We live in a world of distractions. Kids live in distractions. They're on social media. They're on Facebook. They're on Instagram, right? They're playing video games nonstop. And we lose track of time. We're on social media, or we're playing a video game, and all of a sudden 5 minutes turns into a couple of hours. And we realize, wow, where did all that go? We're also around the clock news people. So we have lots of distractions in our worlds. People often ask me, so, what's this mindfulness stuff? What's the benefit for kids, for me as an adult? So why am I talking about this? How is this good for kids? Well, we know from the research that it gives kids and adults greater focus and attention. It increased feelings of calmness. It decreases anxiety and stress. And anxiety is the #1 mental health concern in our country right now. And it has been for a while, and probably will continue to be so. Mindfulness helps with enhancing our health and well-being. So mindfulness during a time when we have a virus that can attack our immune systems, we need our bodies to be strong. And so if we're feeling depressed, which mindfulness helps with depression and recurrent depression, if we don't address the depression or the anxiety, our immune systems can go down, which makes us susceptible to illness. Mindfulness helps with better impulse control. Kids can be impulsive. And it also helps with emotional regulation. Lots of kids I see, and even some adults I treat, have meltdowns. When things don't go their way, all of a sudden the whole world collapses. So they don't know how to regulate. Now we know emotional regulation is there's a nature-nurture piece there. So there's a genetic piece to that, but there's also an environment that we need to help kids regulate their emotions better. And mindfulness is one of those tools that can help them. It can help with increase our self-awareness and empathy. Boy, do we need empathy for our kids and for each other these days, right? We need to express empathy not only toward each other in person, but on social media and other forms. It helps with executive functioning in children. Executive functioning is this part of the brain, the frontal cortex. So if you're ever on Jeopardy, you would know that answer. This is the prefrontal cortex, and that's where executive functioning is. That's where kids organize. So your kids who are just, their papers are all over the place, or they don't know, they're kind of the scattered kid. They may have executive functioning issues, or you might as well. So mindfulness helps with that. And it helps make better decisions. It helps create space between a stimulus and a response. So when someone, it helps us to respond instead of react to something, right? So someone says something, mindfulness creates a pause between those things, the stimulus, someone saying something, and then our response. So instead of reacting, it creates a space for us. And that's especially helpful for kids, because kids who are impulsive or kids who dysregulate emotionally, they're going to respond they're going to react. And so mindfulness will help them with that. As we know, there's two kinds of mindfulness practices. There's formal, which is meditation and yoga, and then informal practices, which I'm going to talk a little bit about, like mindful walking and eating. These are all things we can do with our kids. Any of the skills that I'm teaching to you tonight, I'm hoping that these aren't just for kids or teens. They're for us too. The difference is how we explain them to kids. And some of them may have a kid bent to them. Because when we're communicating with kids, whether they be 5 or 15, we have to speak their language so that they understand. So some of the things that I'm imparting to you tonight, hopefully you can do as well with them. But I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. So what are some tips to introducing mindfulness to kids? Well, we want to introduce what's the purpose of it. Keep it simple. Like I said to you in the beginning, mindfulness is about noticing what you think, what you feel, what's your sensations. Is it warm? Is it cold? So just noticing, bringing mindful awareness. Do you practice mindfulness? You know, we can't ask kids to do something that maybe we're not doing ourselves. We can't ask kids to control their emotions if we're not in control of our emotions. It's sort of the practice what you preach. So if we model, I mean, we're role models to kids in lots of things that we do, whether you're a parent, grandparent, babysitter, au pair, teacher, you are their role models. And so do we practice it? When we think about, implementing mindfulness with kids, we should think about what time is best. We know our kids best. We know are the mornings better? Are afternoons better? Before sleep better? And sometimes we can vary that up. We want to create an open environment. We have lots of distractions. So maybe designate a place in your home or outside now that the weather's beautiful to practice mindfulness. Make sure that other families are aware that this is what we're doing so that they're not, Ma, when's dinner, or electronics are around that are distracting. So find an environment that's conducive to practicing mindfulness and do it together. I said this a bit ago, that it's a lot of fun when we do things together with kids. And maybe this pandemic has made, I don't want to spend another minute with my kids. I've been spending 8 hours teaching them, feeding them, whatever. But this is really the fun stuff. This is the quality time. This is showing them that we could do something together as a family that helps one another. So, it's important that at the end of the day, what most kids value is time with you or time with an adult. Tchotchkes are nice or rewards are nice, but nothing beats spending time with a parent, a coach, a teacher, a loved one, a grandparent. There's nothing better than that. And those of us that reflect on our best memories, it's usually with someone very special in our lives. So teach kids to breathe and accept wandering thoughts too. We do that. When we're meditating, I'm all of a sudden thinking, what's for dinner, and what's tomorrow going to bring, and that patient that I'm seeing at 6:30, are they okay? So it's like all these random thoughts come in. So teach kids that that's okay. It's natural, okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. Share your experiences about mindfulness with children. What you like, what you don't like, what has helped you, what hasn't helped you. When we share our experiences, we make it more personal and real. We don't just become like the teacher imposing something. We become the student with them and encourage them to share their own experiences and accept that they have negative feelings about it. I hate this. This is boring. This is stupid. This is dumb. I feel weird. Well, I'm going to talk a little bit about resistance in a bit, but, accept that those. Don't dismiss their feelings. Yeah, I can get that. It kind of feels weird. It felt weird for me in the beginning too. So let them express their feelings and start out with short periods of time. With timeout, when you use timeout with kids, you say a minute for each, age. You could do the same thing with mindfulness practice. For a 3-year-old, let's sit for a couple of minutes. For a 5-year-old, let's do 5 minutes and see. And if they don't, no big deal. Vary the experience. Try different kinds of meditations, like breathing meditations or mantra meditations, like saying a word or a phrase, or listen to a meditation. Do some yoga. So vary the practice up a bit because it'll keep it fresh. That's important for us too. I know for myself, I like to vary it up. Some days I do yoga, some days I'm meditating, some days I do different kinds of meditation. It keeps it fresh. So that's also important for kids. And the other thing with kids, and also for adults, is have fun with it. Because if you're not having fun, then why do? Right? We have to have this shouldn't be another chore in the list of a day that they have to do. Kids have so many pressures today to do well academically. Even sports aren't as fun as they used to be. It's win, win, win all the time. And so it's really important that they feel that this is fun and something that they can have fun with. Oftentimes kids will show resistance to mindfulness, or really to anything that might be new. So what I do with my kids, clinically and not in my practice, is I pose it as an experiment. When I get worried, I sometimes, do this breathing exercise. Would you like to try it? Let's have fun with it. Let's give it a shot. Let's do it for a couple of minutes and see how it goes. And then maybe we can add on. So when you pose it as an experiment, it kind of empowers them a bit and not feel like it's, that's something they have to do. It makes them curious about it too. What is this mindfulness stuff? How come mom is, what is that pose she's in? Looks kind of funny. So, it's building their curiosity about it. And explain in a way they'll understand. Just as I said earlier, it's about noticing what you think, feel, touch, smell, see. So, you might have an anxious child. You might have a very self-conscious child. They might feel embarrassed, particularly a teenager or a tween. They might be perfectionistic. I'm not doing this right. I have to do it perfectly. I'm not breathing right. Or I'm not doing the warrior one pose correctly. Who cares? Are you having fun? Let's try it again. So when you take that approach with children, whatever the skill might be, it builds their confidence. Because confidence is built by working on skills. And by doing that repeatedly, they will start to build confidence in their practice. Your connectedness is important. Your connection as a parent, a teacher, grandparent, whatever your role is to use, you are the best tool to bring to your children. Your trust and rapport that you have with them is the best thing that you can give your kids or to give children. Because if you don't have that, you don't have communication, you don't have a practice, you don't have any of these things. I always say to the doctoral students I'm supervising at Fairleigh Dickinson that the best tool that as a future psychologist that you bring into the room is you. Because everyone knows when you are genuine and when you are a real person. And so use your relationship with your children. Use that, build that trust, build that rapport. It'll go a long way, regardless of mindfulness practice. Ask yourself, how comfortable am I with these practices? Do I feel awkward with my body? Am I struggling with my meditation practice? Do I think this breathing stuff is a bunch of malarkey? So if you have those things, be mindful of those and how do you bring them forward to children? And I think also what's important is never criticize or judge or compare other children. I always say to kids in my practice, it's unfair to compare. And so when we do this, when we judge them or criticize them or compare them, regardless again of mindfulness practice, they're going to abandon it. And it's going to sever or damage the relationship that you have with your child. So accept them for where they are. And we have, I have a children's book coming out next spring on body positivity because people hate their bodies. They're very critical, even at a young age. And so like doing practices such as body scans or yoga is that they often feel very self-conscious about their bodies, even at a young age. So be gentle with them about that. Teach them to love their bodies for what they are and that they can use those bodies in very healthy ways. So we need to look at that within ourselves as well. Kids don't build walls unless they need them. We need to build walls to protect ourselves. So resistance to mindfulness is not rejecting you. Don't personalize it. Okay, so you know your kids best. Again, like maybe this wasn't a good time. They didn't have their breakfast yet, or they didn't have their Cheerios. So maybe after the Cheerios, we'll do some mindfulness practices. And walls and resistance sometimes keep kids safe. We need them to protect. They need to learn boundaries and social skills. Keep your compassion high and your judgment low. Our job is to model and invite kids to mindfulness and model that adults can respect boundaries as well. And you'll see less resistance. So as I said earlier, that the exercises that I'm going to, and I encourage you to participate if you wish. And if you don't want to participate because of where you are, or you're just not comfortable, do the exercise in your mind. And you can encourage kids to do the same thing. You know what? Maybe that's a great way to introduce it to them. You know what? You don't have to do this, but just kind of rehearse it in your mind. that may be the buy-in that may get them to start to become curious about wanting to do it and participate in it. So the exercises that I'm giving you have come from literature for kids and teenagers, but they also could be for adults. As I said earlier, the difference is the language we use to explain it to children and teenagers. And we want to relate to their present moment awareness. One of the things that I do, or that I recommend for patients and people in my personal life to do when they are anxious or bored, is to tap into your five senses. And Catherine had talked about my book coming out on chronically ill children, on parenting them. And one of the things that I suggest that, we all have been in waiting rooms and waiting for test results or waiting to go in to see the doctor. And it could seem like forever, and our anxieties can be like really raised up. So what I encourage parents to do, and you can do this, is tap into their five senses. Ask them to name 5 things they see, 4 things they hear, 3 things they can touch, 2 things they smell, and 1 thing that they taste. And you can vary that up. So you could say, instead of 5 things you see, you could do 5 things you hear. Because sometimes in certain environments, we may not be hearing anything, or we may not be smelling anything or tasting anything. So that's tapping into your 5 senses. 5 things you can see, 4 things you can hear, 3 things you can touch, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. And it's a great way to reduce anxiety because it serves a bit of a distraction. Another thing that kids love to do, and I usually do this like sometimes before a session or after a session or a very intense session, is I love to do balloon breaths with kids. And so basically it's, kind of taking a breath in, opening up your chest, and then breathing out. And you can cross your arms like this. And you can vary that with different ways of, opening up your arms and your chest, because when we open up our chest, it allows us to breathe better and close up, okay? So those are called balloon breaths. And breathing exercises help stabilize our energy and our emotions. Breathing can sometimes induce anxiety, so we just need to be aware of that. Because some people, there is a difference between nose breathers and mouth breathers. If everyone could just take a moment and breathe out of their mouth, take breaths out of their mouth. I would imagine most people might feel that that's an uncomfortable way to breathe. It might even feel very anxiety provoking. Why? Because it activates the sympathetic nervous system, which activates anxiety and panic. When we're really anxious or we're feeling threatened in that fight or flight mode of stress or anxiety, we might just breathe like that. We want to teach kids and ourselves to breathe through our nose because that activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which calms us down. So if you see your child or a child breathing through their mouth, teach them to breathe through their nose, okay? Because that will lower their anxiety. We can do heart and belly breathing. So this is like just placing your hand on your heart and placing your hand on your belly. And it doesn't matter which hand you use. You can change it up and ask the child, say, which one feels more comfortable? What does it feel like to do the opposite? Noticing, this feels more uncomfortable. And just take breaths. When we know that when we touch our hearts, it relieves that love hormone, oxytocin. Also, when we touch our heart and our bellies, we activate the vagus nerve. Some people say vagus, some people say vagus, potato, whatever. It's the nerve that goes throughout the body, and it regulates the body system, such as heartbeat and breathing. And so it really helps when that vagus nerve gets stimulated, because that helps calm us down when we're stressed out. And so they say about 6 breaths can reduce our stress. So kids who are into science or STEM, you can explain to them, about the vagus nerve, and that'll get more of a buy-in for your child who might, like I said, be interested in STEM or in biology or how the body works. So heart and belly breathing, you could do that. And it's just really breathing in and breathing out, feeling your belly going in and out. You can sometimes feel your heartbeat. So that's another thing you can do with children or teenagers. There's something called the Lingana breath. The Lingana breath is the emphasis is on the exhale. So if you want to bring your energy down, so if your kid is really excited, and if you're a teacher and it's like after lunch, or if you're a parent and it's like they're really upset about something, you want to bring their energy down. So what we teach kids to do is, and if you would like, you could do this with me, is you inhale normally, and the exhale should be longer. That will bring your energy down. Now, reverse it. Sometimes we're sluggish, or our kids are sluggish. We want them to do their homework, or we need them to practice their piano. So we reverse it, and that will bring the energy up. So when we lengthen the inhale, and then shorten the exhale, it will bring the energy of your child and you up. And that's called the Lunghana breath. We also, when we think about the breath, by the way, that's the best portable app we've got, because we bring it everywhere, including these. This is another portable app. And we could teach kids about 5-finger breathing. And you can do this several ways. You can take a breath in, until you get to 5 or 10 or 15, right? Depends. Or we you can have a young child trace, take a breath in, hold it, breathe out. Breathe in, hold it, breathe out. Okay, so you can use, that's called 5 or 10 finger breathing. And again, you could be out at the mall, the child's having a meltdown, you don't have certain tools. We always have the breath. We always have the hands. We can always use them. As I said, the best portable app that we can have. And there's some great apps for kids, but these are always great because you don't need any kind of technology. There's also a breath that is called alternative nose breathing. This may be hard for some younger kids, but some of my older kids and teenagers really like it. And it's using your thumb and your pointer finger. It's a little tricky, but try to follow along. You close off one nostril and you breathe in, flip, and breathe out the other nostril. Breathe in, flip, breathe out. Does that make sense for everyone? When we have the comments later, we can see how that worked. But what this does, it improves our ability to focus the mind. And kids sometimes have focus issues. It also supports our lung functions because we're releasing toxins from our lungs, and it balances the right and the left hemisphere of our brain. Now, with the alternate nose breathing, it's a little tricky, especially during allergy and cold season, because what might happen with kids and maybe even adults is sometimes snot will come flying out of your nose. And I guess with COVID, we want to be careful, but nevertheless, it also can be a point of being silly with your children, if that should happen. But that's one way of kind of having fun with this kind of alternate nose breathing. But a lot of my older kids and a lot of my adult patients will report that it really helps to calm them down once they get the alternate nose thing down, because like I said, it could be a little tricky for some. They seem to really enjoy it. So alternate nose breathing. We can also do something called smell and tell. Have them close their eyes, get your children around and cut orange peel or different things and have them go around and notice what is it that they smell. I use smelling a lot to teach kids how to breathe. What is your favorite smell? Chocolate chip cookies. Okay, we're gonna smell chocolate chip cookies. And then when we breathe out, maybe we breathe out something we don't like broccoli. I do the same with colors. What is your favorite color? Breathe in that color and breathe out the color maybe that you don't like. Most people choose black or red when they're talking about anger or stress. And the reason why those things are really great for kids is because it's very visual for kids. especially for young children, because they're concrete thinkers at that age. So they're not really capable of abstract thought. So if you give them something concrete to work on, like 5 fingers or alternate nose or smell and tell, it gives them something to hold on to, and it makes more sense to them. We want to teach, for teenagers, we want to introduce maybe mindful walking or mindful eating. I don't know if any of you have ever done that, but feeling your feet hit the floor and feeling the muscles in your legs and your buttocks. Or when you mindfully eat, I guarantee if you've never done this, try this with your next favorite beverage. It'll be the best drink you've ever experienced, is that holding, like, let's take coffee, for example, holding the cup of coffee in your hand, feeling the warmth, and then slowly maybe even smelling the coffee, okay? And then bringing it slowly to your mouth, not drinking it just yet. And then taking a very small sip and feeling the warmth on your lips and the inside of your mouth, and then swallowing the cup of coffee, or the sip of coffee, excuse me. Don't drink the whole cup of coffee in one slug. You'll call me up and say, Dr. Cilio, you burned my mouth, or something like that. So just being cognizant of what we're eating, how we're eating it. Is it salty? Is it sweet? Engage in mindful coloring. And these coloring books that are out, many of you may be familiar with them. They're great for adults, kids, and teenagers. But you might get your perfectionistic child who, I didn't get it in the line. Again, accepting and allowing it and teaching them it's about having fun, or it's about just being and present to that. The game Jenga, are you familiar with that? The game has like all these wooden blocks. You can write things on them, like, what are you feeling at this moment? So as they're pulling the Jenga pieces out, there's something written on it that they have to respond to, or not have to, but you suggest that they respond to that. And it gets them to talk, and it gets them to concentrate and focus. So mindful Jenga can be a fun game for the family to engage in. And you can use it with things written on them or not. You can engage in body scans with older teens, like scanning their body from their head to their feet. It's part of the MBSR training. And then engaging in self-compassion practices. And I know the Crane Center offers courses not only in mindfulness-based stress reduction, but also in self-compassion. And we do need a lot of work with self-compassion these days. We're very, very hard on ourselves. Another thing you can do for children, I'm sure you may be familiar with some of these things, is creating a mindful jar. And this is a plastic bottle, because if you use glass, then inevitably it'll be a problem. And so these plastic bottles, you fill it with hot water, clear glue, glitter, and seal it up. The more glue you put in, the slower the glitter goes. And you can use this as a meditative object to look at and meditate on. You can use this to explain meditation and mindfulness to children. So these are your thoughts and feelings all swirling around. And we can't see very clearly because everything's swirling around, right? But watch what happens when we meditate and we start to calm our minds. We start to do some breathing. Things start to settle down. They don't go away, and then we can see things clearer. We can use something called a Hoberman sphere. Okay, so I call this my breathing ball in my office, and we can teach kids to breathe in and out. And I have these in my office to pique curiosity in my young patients. So they're like, Dr. Cilio, what is that? What is that for? And I say, oh, well, this is my breathing ball. So you can have these in your home, or they can have them in their rooms, okay? The other thing also about the mindfulness jars is you can create one for different feelings. So maybe you create a red one when they're angry, or a blue one when they feel sad. But just make sure that when they use the red one for anger, that they don't also use it to throw at other people. So you can do them and mix that up and make it fun for them. You can also create breathing beads out of a pipe cleaner and get some beads and take a breath in, move the bead up, move the next bead and breathe out. And you can do this repeatedly with children. And so it's, again, something tangible that they can hold in their hands and something they've created. And there's more buy-in. And lastly, you can use something like a pinwheel. Again, to teach breathing. And it can be, again, you can have these things in their room. So when they need to go chill out or they need to calm down, maybe you can have them in their rooms, that they can use them in a safe way. So, these are some of the tools that, you can employ with your children, with children with students you might have, and mix it up. Again, tangible things that they can touch, concrete things for younger children, because they won't understand those abstract concepts. So keep it simple for them. Keep it colors, keep it smells and things that they can relate to, okay? Practice these things when the child is calm, not when they're in the heat of a meltdown. Here. Blow on the pinwheel here. It'll calm you down. No. Teach it to them when they're calm, because the brain will register, oh, this is what calm is, as opposed to, trying to, enact these skills when they are upset. Okay? Most important thing, like I said, is have fun with this. And again, your comfort with your own practice of mindfulness and how you can bring some of your own ideas and creativity. So now I guess, we can open it up for some questions that people might have, or comments or ideas that we can share collectively as a community, because mindfulness is about building community too. Any questions?
Yes, but how do you raise your hand?
How do you raise your hand?
Yes.
Oh, I think it's on the participant piece, and I think it says raise your hand there. If you hit on participants, you can raise your hand. Do you see that? Does everyone see that?
Yeah.
Okay, I see that William has his hand. You can unmute yourself and you can, unless that was your question on how do you raise your hand.
No. I actually have a question, if I may.
Sure.
First of all, thank you very much. I found your presentation to be very, very informative and interesting.
Thank you.
So I'm just questioning the range of age that these various techniques work for, or how you adapt them, because if I'm not mistaken, the majority of books you write are for preteen, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know that for a fact, but obviously there's a different mindset to somebody that's 14 than somebody that's 6.
Absolutely.
So are you suggesting that pretty much all of these exercises subject to slight modification would work across the entire age bracket, or are there some that are more applicable depending upon age?
I think certain ones are more applicable to age. Like, I've had teenagers grab my Hoberman sphere and use that. I've had my teenagers use, a meditation or a mindfulness jar. I think that, as I said, with the teens, sometimes they're more, buy-in is more when they're more active, or they can, obviously, as I said earlier in the presentation, it's more about how we explain things to kids. We're going to adapt our language accordingly. You may not do balloon breaths with a 17-year-old teenager. You may not, you may adapt a different kind of breath, they may be, what appeals to them. Maybe they're more into yoga than they are into balloon breaths, or they might be more into mantra meditations where they might repeat, I am calm, or they might like guided meditations where they can listen to something on Insight Timer or one of the apps where they can, listen to someone do a meditation. So I think that, my books are written for children between 4 and 8 years old.
Right.
The teenagers that I've worked with, lots of these things, Jenga, like I mentioned, mindful walking, even learning mindful talking, learning to listen and speak, is much more for the older teenager on the spectrum of teenagers, So I think it's, again, how we explain it and how do we adapt some of the things that I mentioned today. They might not use 5-finger breaths. They may not.
No, I think the Jenga idea was a great idea, writing these various sayings or questions on them.
Yeah. And I also think, we don't have to write the questions. They can also be part of that as far as writing questions as well. And what they write and what they question, it may be very revealing about what's on their mind and what their concerns are.
Do you have either on your website or elsewhere suggested questions, or like, as a parent, I might not, Jenga has a lot of pieces. I don't know how many, but there's certainly quite a few.
Yes.
Do you offer suggested terminology or questions?
I'm updating, I'm modernizing my website currently. So it's something that I'm thinking about moving forward, but currently not right now. If people, people that are here today want to email me, that's certainly, I'm very open to that. They can call my office, certainly I'm very open to that. But right now my website doesn't support such suggestions.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from anyone? Wow.
Well, Frank, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. So I'm going to say thank you to everyone, but I'm going to invite you to, as our exit or our outro, pick one of your favorite breathing exercises and let's invite everyone to participate as our, ending. What do you think about that?
I think that's awesome. That's awesome. So
You put out so many beautiful exercises. I loved so many of them. So whatever your favorite or one of your favorites is, let's share.
which one is mine that I love the best?
Yeah, and lead us maybe just for a minute or two. Anyone that has to leave can just quietly leave. But for those of you who can stay for another minute, just a short one of your favorite breathing, the hand and the heart, the hand on the heart. And
I love loving kindness meditations. And I'm very connected to heartfulness and our hearts, and because it's very ties into self-compassion and other compassion. So let's just all put our hands on our heart and be gentle to ourselves in this day, given what we are, whatever our situation, where we find ourselves, whatever situation we are finding ourselves in, during this time in our lives when things are uncertain. And just notice our breath. Noticing our hand on our heart and in our belly. Noticing how our hands feel there. How does it feel to hold yourself? Send yourself some compassion. Send yourself some loving kindness, which means saying to ourselves a mantra such as, may I be happy. May I be healthy. May I be safe. May I be peaceful. When you feel ready, open your eyes, relax your body, take one final breath and let it out slow.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Cilio. Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening. I hope to see you all very soon.
Be well.
You as well.